Hi, I'm Allen Henderson, a broker at Henderson Real Estate. Welcome to the Ahwatukee History Project. Today, Marty's going to interview Joe Garner. Joe's the grandson of Arthur and Molly Hunter. In 1909, Arthur Hunter homesteaded the land in the open desert at what would become 48th Street and Thistle Landing. It was the start of what became Hunter Ranch. The ranch grew and became an integral part of the Kyrene Farming Community. Joe grew up on the Hunter Ranch. Hunter Ranch was located on a dirt road known as Hunter Drive, which is now known as 48th Street. Joe loved the ranch and refers to it as his wonderland and his playground. Let's listen in as Joe reminisces about his grandfather Arthur Hunter and his uncles Tinker and Tiny. You'll enjoy his story about little Joe Get My Gun.
So that was with your grandmother. There was a time with your grandfather where something pretty interesting happened on the ranch, correct?
Correct. We came in from the fields and we were reporting to my grandpa there under the chinaberry tree in the yard where he sat and was monitoring what was going on. And we were discussing what we were doing in the fields. And a car pulled up to the fence there in the yard. This young guy got out and walked over and introduced himself as a real estate guy from somewhere. And Papa said, well, what can I do for you, son? And he said, well, I'm here to buy your land, Mr. Hunter. And he goes, well, I'm sorry, but my land's not for sale. And he goes, well, yeah, you're gonna have to sell. You might as well sell it to me. And my grandfather said, no, son, it's not for sale. This is my land, and it's not for sale. Well, he kept insinuating the fact that he had to sell to him. Mm-hmm. And my grandfather got real quiet and said, son, it's not for sale. And that's the end of it. So he said, I'm not leaving until you sell me the land, And he said, little Joe, which was me, he said, go in the house and get my gun. And I knew what gun that was because it was right above the door on the back door. So I got up and I started toward the door, and he said, what are you going to do? I said, I'm going to go get a shotgun. And I said, when you're here, I get back, he's going to shoot you. And he goes, no. And I went and got that gun, and I came out with that gun. And that guy ran and jumped in his car and left.
That was the end of that.
And I said, Papa, was you going to shoot him? He goes, he said, I just detest rudeness in a man. Uh-huh. Yeah. I just detest it. Yeah. And he said he was very, very rude. Mm. So I to this day, I thought, he might have shot him.
Working in the fields, were you a kid at that point?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. His philosophy was, if you're under 12 years old, you work around the house there with the eggs and the chickens, and you help the little women around the house. When you're 12 years old, you're a man. You go to work in the fields. Okay. And I'll never forget it. My birthday is May 6th, so we got out of school May 1st, because that's when school ended. And he said, you're 12 years old today? And I said, yes, sir. And he goes, he said, here's a shovel, here's an alarm clock. And I said, well, what am I going to do with these? And he goes, you get your ditch ready because you got 72 hours of water coming. We're going to irrigate.
Training on the job.
On the job training, yeah. And I said, well, I understand what the shovel's for to do the ditch, but what's the clock for? He said, to wake you up. He said, because I know you're going to go to sleep. And just set the alarm, and they'll wake you up. It's one of them little dinger things, ding, ding, ding,
sure.
The old wind-up clocks. And I said, I won't go to sleep, brother. He goes, okay. He knew because he had, 4 sons, and he knew how the game was played. Mm-hmm. And so I started getting my ditch ready, and the water came, and we started irrigating, and of course I fell asleep, and and the alarm clock goes off, and I don't hear it, of course. He bumps me, and he's out there with the dog, the lantern. And he walked out there to make sure I was doing what I was supposed to be doing.
He had a feeling.
Yeah, he had a feeling. And he said, I knew you was going to go to sleep. He said, I'm just here to wake you up. Just go ahead and keep working.
Now, Arthur Hunter had 4 sons. These would be your uncles?
Yes. Yes.
The uncle's, the apple didn't fall too far from the tree in terms of a sense of adventure and exploration, right?
Oh, well, he had his oldest son, Jacob, was a clone of him. Big, bruising man. And then there was Arthur Jr., and then there was Leslie, and then Joseph. But Arthur and Leslie were not known as Arthur and Leslie. Mm-hmm. That was Tinker and Tiny.
Okay.
Tinker, because he was always tinkering with stuff. They called him Tinker. And then Tiny was smaller than Tinker, so they called him Tiny.
Okay.
Leslie was smaller than Arthur, I should say. And they called him Tiny. And everybody knew him as Tinker and Tiny.
Okay.
And they were pranksters, they were jokesters, they were
miners, right?
They were miners, they were lumbermen, they were miners, they were business owners. They run the gamut of mischievousness.
They ever take you along with them on some of their adventures?
Oh my goodness, yes. I was the oldest child on the ranch at that time, and so I was subject to, come on, little Joe, let's go for a ride. And so we'd take off and we'd go for a ride. Well, the ride made like we're going to Payson.
Okay.
And in a 1952 Chevy pickup. And there was Tinker and Tiny and me. And I was little. I would stand in the seat between them. And we would go up to the check because they owned the sawmill at Overguard.
Oh, okay.
Tinker did. And they would go up to check on it. And we would go for rides. My mother had little say in, we're just taking little Joe for a ride. Well, you know, she didn't know where we was going most of the time, but it was a case of, we're going to take little Joe and we're going to go. And the trouble was that they started drinking before they left. And they drank all the way up to Overguard.
Good example.
Yeah. We came up to Rye, Arizona, and they couldn't go another mile. They had to have a drink because they were out. And I was bugging them because I was talking all the time. You know, like, where are we going? Mm-hmm. You know, are we there yet? I have to go to the bathroom, you know, all this stuff. So they'd always stop at Rye, and they would drink into oblivion. But they would always give me, they had huge chunks of jerky back then. Not like thin things like they have now, but huge chunks of jerky. And they would stick that in my mouth and tell me to shut up and sit down. And we would go to Overguard to check on the sawmill.
How old were you at this point?
I was like 5 or 6 years old, maybe. I was little. I could stand in the seat between them, so I had to be, 5 years old or something. And
wasn't there an occasion where they took you back into the hills, back in what today is the foothills, and they had either a mine or certainly the remnants of what might have been in the 20s?
Tiny was convinced that there was gold in the foothills. He was convinced of it. And somehow he had acquired sticks of dynamite from somewhere. Somehow. And we would go back in there and check the mines for gold. Well, his idea with mining was to light it, throw it, and then cover your ears. And
how fun.
Yeah, it was great. It was exciting because of the explosion and the dirt flying.
Yeah. And
then we would look for gold, and we would find all this gold, and he would have pockets full of it. And we would run back to my grandfather's house, and he'd say, "Papa, look, I'm rich. We got the gold." And Papa said, "Yes, son, you sure are." But Papa knew that was mica, fool's gold. Ah,
okay.
But Tiny thought it was real gold.
Right.
But we were mining and trapping. He fancied himself as a trapper too, so we'd trap animals out there that were bothering things, like coyotes and try to get rid, because with the coyotes would come in and steal the chickens.
Sure.
So we had to get rid of the coyotes. And one day we were sitting in the yard there, and the 2 dogs came in, Bo and Tex. And Bo was cut up really bad. And, he was really in bad shape. And he passed away in the yard there.
Oh, boy.
And Tiny was so mad that we went out and trailed the blood back.
Yeah.
And found out that he got tied up with a badger out there. There was some badger was out there, and we trapped that badger. He trapped that badger and got him. But he was very, very upset with that when he lost Bo.
Mm-hmm.
So
I have to ask, what became of the badger?
he met his demise in the trap. Tiny drove a stake in the ground and put a chain on it to the trap. Excuse me. And he trapped that badger on the back leg. And that badger dug a hole around that stake.
Wow.
Trying to get away from that bat. He was trapped and he couldn't get away, and he just went furious.
Wow.
And we went out there and we dispatched the badger.
Mm-hmm.
And
Okay.
it was a good thing because he said, "You won't tear up the dogs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Hurt the dogs."
If you enjoyed the video and want to see future episodes of the Ahwatukee History Project, be sure to give us a like and click the subscribe button. Questions and comments are always welcome.